Howdy everyone, and welcome back to another replay. This is round 2 for the Japanese Grand Touring Championship Group 3 cars, and without any further delays, let's begin the race. We've got myself on pole with Petrol alongside on P2, and the Five Red Light Squad, and they are underway for the sprint race at the Red Bull Ring. A pretty decent start for the front row. Already building a bit of a gap as they're 3 wide for that third position in the background, but I maintain the lead ahead of Petrolhead, and then it is Doug Barrow in third in the Supra, with Small Jack fighting for that P4 with Bradders. His first race is this is Bradders' first race in this mini season, so already we've got some unfamiliar people in this category, and just slightly. Well, a bit of lag going on there as they round turn 3, coming down the second back straight of the race. And it has been a relatively clean start so far, no crashes or spins from what I can see. There was a bit of ghosting in the first corner, as we see here, another newcomer to the series. I forget what their PSN name is now, because it's obviously showing nicknames, so I will try and get that up. But they've only joined the group recently, but it's good to have them here in the NSX, one of the favoured cars, defending against Superboy and Hair Razor in P8. And then just at the back we've got Siren, who I think has had a bit of an issue there. I did see someone going a bit wide through the sweepers in the middle sector, so that I think he was looking to escape track limits there, but thankfully no issues at the moment. So as they come round to complete lap 1, it is still myself in the lead with Petra in second. I think Bradders has just gone off the track at the final corner, so that might be track limits there, but he could have escaped it considering that he might have let off the throttle before he rejoined the track. And there is just a bit of lag, a few lag issues there. I think Petrahead has just had a moment coming out of turn 1, because he seems to be taking the pit entry, the pit exit line through the exit of turn 1, so that's obviously not the ideal line. I think he's ended up there because he's lit up the rear tyres. And there's still loads of lag going on there. Doug Barrow actually picking up a track limits penalty, so it wasn't Bradders who suffered there. I think that Doug Barrow got that for turn 1. And if you're unaware, turn 1 in these cars is a very tricky corner. The older suspension and the sort of worse handling compared to the other Group 3 cars makes turn 1 a really tricky corner, as well as the bumps as well. From the February update on this game, it has made the bumps at turn 1 extremely profound, so it is quite difficult to get the line right there. As Brad is again going into the gravel, I can't tell if that's actual lag or if he's actually going off the track there, because he doesn't seem to be losing much time, but I think that time it definitely was off the track. He picked up a half-second penalty as Petrahead serves. Oh no, so that is Doug Barrow serving his track limits penalty from turn 1, and he just about hangs on to that position. So Small Jack looking to capitalise on Doug Barrow's mistake, but I don't think it's going to pay off for him just this lap. But this is a 40-minute sprint race, and we're only 3 minutes into it, so there's still plenty of time for him to make that overtake. As Brad is off the track again, already with a half-second penalty. I'm sure there's going to be another penalty there, unless if he went a bit too wide. No, he's picked up another half-second. So the older cars combined with the overcast weather and just general inexperience there, proving that it is quite tricky to drive around this track at the moment. And Bar as well, one of the favourites for the win at the last race at Tokyo Expressway, running in P8, and he's also got a track limits penalty there, but he has managed to progress past Hair Razor. He's now been demoted down to P9. So despite the track limits penalty, he's not letting it get to his head, and despite a little bit of a twitch coming out of turn 4, he's managed to actually build a bit of a gap over Hair Razor since last time we checked in on these guys. And Doug Barrow now actually setting the pace through the middle sector. He's on a purple lap at the moment, and he can see that despite the track limit penalty that he has, he's not lost that much time. The top 2 are still very much within sight. I think we'll ride on board with him coming through the final corner now. You want to preferably be riding the sausage curb at the final corner on the apex to actually make the car almost pivot on the curb. and it just helps the handling on these cars massively because it just gives you a little bit of extra rotation. You can see how much track limits they're using out of turn 1 as well. The top 4, I think that is, have built a bit of a gap. There's about a 2-second gap that they've built to the cars running in 5th and lower. And there has just been a change of position between Bradders and Karate coming into turn 2. A little bit more contact. I don't know if that was down to lag, but it did look like Karate missed the apex a little bit. So unfortunately Bradders there, after looking like he was going to gain a position, has actually lost 2 as Superboy there getting in on the action. Can Superboy actually go for a lunge into turn 4? I don't think it's going to quite pay off for him. And Bradders actually on the outside, on the racing line, just able to break that a little bit later and actually hang on to a P6. He's actually managed to get his way back up into P5. Can he go round the outside into turn 6? I think he has done, you know. So a very good move round the outside, keeping it within track limits this time. So he's obviously settled down now after the issues at the start. But he has got a bit of work to do to try and catch up to the top 4. And I've just noticed that the battle for the lead. So petrol all over the back of the white GTR of myself. And it is quite difficult to make a move into turn 1. He will be setting himself up for the run down to turn 3. But turn 1 is such a difficult corner to follow in that as long as I get the exit right, he shouldn't have a chance. But it looks like Petrod has just got that a little bit better than I have. And as well, for me messing up turn 1, I've also picked up a track limit penalty for my troubles. So not ideal at the start. After building a bit of an early advantage, it looks like I am severely under pressure at the moment. Same with Doug Barrow. So Small Jack just took it in for another dose of the slipstream coming down to turn 4. But surprisingly, it has stayed pretty much the same despite many chances of a slipstream overtake in this first part of the lap. And Bradders just defending again from Karate. I don't know if there was a bit of an issue. There definitely is an issue there for Superboy, who has gone into the gravel trap, manages to rejoin the track safely and just found a gap to slot back into. But he still will have dirty tyres, and it has just cost him another position there as Tap in the fellow NSX just overtakes him down the inside of turn 6 there. And he's already got TDC, that is, in another NSX right behind him. So you just got to clean off those tyres and just get back into the flow of things. And I think he has just managed to hold off that attack for the time being. And Hairraiser, actually, in the time that I've not been watching him, he's actually managed to make up another 2 positions. So I think he will have overtaken Bar and Superboy. I think are the 2 cars that he's managed to get past. So despite the shaky start, he has managed to just hang on to himself at the moment. As once again, coming into turn 3, a very close battle between the top 4 here. I think Small Jack has promoted himself up into P3, so I don't know when that happened. It might have been on the into turn 1 there, because the gap has already grown between these 2 drivers. And Doug Brower is typically one of the drivers who struggles once the tyres start to wear. He doesn't like the handling of the car. It seems to really go against his driving style. And unfortunately, that might already be setting in only 8 minutes into the race. And already he's not taken a liking to the handling of his car. You just see how much it's squirming on the throttle coming through turn 5 and turn 6. So he's not out of it yet, but he's just got to try and look after those rear tyres. Obviously, it being a sprint race, there's no mandatory pit stops for the drivers. But Rebel Ring, not really a track that's notorious for tyre wear, so I think the drivers will be a lot better off than what they were at Tokyo, which was definitely a tyre shredder. It was very painful in those last 10 laps, speaking from personal experience. And despite Bradders and Karate battling it out for this 5th position, they have managed to pull a bit of a gap over Hairraiser. So this is, I mean, despite the fact that they are battling, this is good teamwork between these 2. It is a common tactic for the drivers who are running in a pair to just share the slipstream, just to swap positions on the straights and just hand the slipstream and just pull themselves along, which is probably what they are doing. As they can see up the road, there are battles raging on for the top 4 positions as Doug Barrow once again manages to overtake and reclaim his 3rd place. So it seems like all of the action is happening on the exit of turn 1. It does seem to be the favourite point. If you can get that right against your rival, you have a massive advantage. If you just get better traction coming out of turn 1, it really does pay off in the end when you get to the braking zones of turn 3 and turn 4. I think, I'm just going to quickly check, and I think there has been an issue for TDC. I think there was a car spun off at turn 3. So, understandable that it is one of the harder corners to get the power down. Even though the NSX does typically have a longer first gear, but it just seems that in all of the excitement, just lighten up those rear tyres. So he has to serve the track limits penalty. He has gone off again, which unfortunately does give him another track limits penalty, which is very harsh. Despite the fact that he went in the gravel and lost time anyways, he's already got to serve another track limits penalty, this time next lap. So we cut back to the leaders. The gap is settling down a little bit more. It is just growing a little bit. The Supras do seem to be struggling a little bit at this point in the race. They are starting to overheat those rears by the looks of it. Obviously, we did start in overcast weather, which might have helped those in the Supra, as it would obviously kept the tyres colder for longer at the start of the race. But now that the track is actually warming up and the sun is poking out, I think it is making the track temperature rise and just making it a little bit more difficult for those who are punishing to those rear tyres. And Bart, after seemingly having a bit of a lowly qualifying, his progression through the field is not going to stop at the moment. He is already caught to the back of Razor now, so he has been working hard to reduce that gap between these two. But again, another Supra just having a little twitch of the rear end coming through a traction zone. And he's just got to set himself up properly for an overtake coming out of turn 1. I don't think he's going to have the run following through these very tricky final corners. But he does get a good clip of the apex there and manages to just straighten up the exit a little better than what Hairraiser was able to do. As they start lap 9, these two, heading down into turn 1, I think Bar will just, he's lifting off the throttle, just backing off, saving himself for the run out of turn 1, which he has managed to pretty much nail compared to Razor. However, I think these two are working together because I think that was a bump draft between these two. So they can see that P5 is not actually that far up the road. So it's a bit of an interesting dynamic at the moment that the entire top 8 is split up into 4 pairs of drivers. As we've got Bar and Hairraiser, then we've got Karate and Bradders, who has another track limits penalty, Small Jack and Doug Barrow, and then finally Petrol and myself. So everyone working in a pair, working in a slipstream pair, as Petrhead there, I think that will be track limits dipping the wheel into the gravel, which is a big shame because he has just set another purple sector in the race. So both of us pushing hard at the moment. And already 50 minutes, we're nearing almost a third of the way through the race. It has absolutely flown by, this race. And I think that has just been a change of position as Bradders has to serve that track limits penalty. Karate going round the outside into turn 9. You don't often see an overtake there. But he has managed to just hang on to that position, and I've just noticed that Karate is running, he's running under the Turkish flag, but he's got a Canadian flag on the end plates of his rear wings, so that's a bit of a interesting car design, but I don't think there's any issue with it. It's just an interesting side note. And Doug Barrow is seemingly massively under pressure there from the NSX and getting all out of shape there. Small Jack with a fantastic exit coming out of turn 3. Doug Barrow just getting hooked on the sausage curb a little bit. But the Supra, I should say, just has a little bit better pull in the mid-range gears, which is a bit unusual, you'd have to say, because the NSX normally does seem to drive better when it's not running in low gears. So that is an interesting thing to see here. It's obviously maybe a little bit of a change of bot in the February update when this race took place. So we will see how that plays out between these two, because it just seems to be back and forth. But it does seem to show that the bot is working quite well, as we do have 3 different manufacturers, all 3 manufacturers running in the top 4 at the moment. And actually, I think we've got 2 of each car running in the top 6. I think, yes, we do. As we've got Karate in the substitute NSX. I think Karate, he might have entered under a reserve role, but I think he might be, if he's available at every race, I think he could probably take on a full-time role, which is obviously what we like to see. We do like to see new members joining all the time. And at this middle stage of the race, everything is seeming to just about settle down now. There's not really too much of an intense battle going on. I think there is a bit of a battle between Bradders and Karate, but I don't think there's really much happening on track in terms of actual battles for position. Hairraiser has actually pulled a gap over Bar, so despite him looking like he was massively under pressure, he has actually managed to build about 1.5 seconds over the pink Supra behind. And this is actually a battle that is raging on the circuit. We've got Tap versus Superboy. So Superboy trying to make amends for the dip into the gravel trap earlier in the race. And I think these two have actually been running quite close for some time now, because I don't think Superboy was actually that far behind Tap when he went off the track. So both of these guys running very even pace, but it just shows you that even though Superboy was probably challenging for a top 5 finish, the pace of this series just shows that if you make one mistake, you're still going to be racing people who are on the same pace as you in the bottom end of the top 10. So it is very close between all the drivers at the moment, as there is a potential lead change coming up into turn 3. Petra down the inside, missing the apex a little bit, slight wheel contact, but the GTR just getting a bit of a better exit, but the Supra then pulls again in the mid-range gears. It's going to be side-by-side down towards turn 4. Who's going to be later on the brakes? The outside line for the GTR, the inside for the Supra. I think they just about miss hitting each other. And does the Supra get it? No, I think I'm still on the outside for the inside of turn 6. And despite all of the effort that Petra put in, the lead still hangs on to myself in the GTR. So it stays the same for another lap. Unless if Petra can get a fantastic exit coming out of turn 8, the little kink with the very bouncy curb. But I don't think he's going to be able to launch an attack for the remainder of the lap. But he's going to have another go coming through turn 1. He is a lot closer than what he's been for the past couple of laps. And the GTR just dipping a wheel on the grass there, not helping the exit speed. So it is probably going to put me under pressure coming out of turn 1, even more so, as we both absolutely clobber the curb at the first corner, trying to shorten the run through the apex. And I think that Supra is probably going to have another go as they come through the kink of turn 2. Now Petrol chooses the outside line as I defend the inside. Can he be late on the brakes? I don't think he can. The GTR, a bit of a notorious car for being fantastic on the brakes, but Petrol goes for the switchback with superior traction. Again, another bit of wheel contact on the straight, so both trying to side draft each other, and I think we both just merged towards each other. Can the GTR once again hang it round the outside? I think Petrol just puts a bit more of a squeeze on, trying to unsettle myself, and he has managed to make his way up into the lead. So it was hard fought for, but he has managed to overcome the resistance. But now that I am the car behind, these cars do seem to handle a little bit better when they're actually in the dirty air, because you take all of the downforce off of the rear wing, you take a lot of the understeer, minimise it, and there's actually an attack coming into turn 9, so the GTR's superior straight line speed just coming into effect there, coming out of turn 8, still side by side as they head into the final corner, not really a place you want to go alongside another car. And sensibly we both form into single file before we make our way back down to turn 1 again. And I think there is another battle. We're going to quickly pan to Doug Barrow and Small Jack. So these two also providing a lot of entertainment in the background. But Doug Barrow once again swapping the position back. He has reclaimed his third place. And I think, was that a track limits penalty? That is a track limits penalty for Doug Barrow. So that is going to definitely set him back behind the NSX behind him. And can the Supra, for the third lap in a row, just get that little bit of extra traction coming out of turn 3? I don't think it's quite going to pay off for petrol this lap in particular. So we're going to quickly cut back to these two for the final step on the rostrum. And you just see that Small Jack just taking a little bit of a late race at apex, trying to straighten up the traction zone, which is probably what Doug Barrow needs to do, as that car seems to be struggling a lot of the time when he's trying to accelerate and turn. So obviously these positions will swap around. I think, there has just been a penalty for myself that has just had to be served. So Petrohead once again takes the lead. Small Jack once again takes third place. And I mean, it's kind of hard to keep track of everyone else when the top 4 is just electric with action at the moment. But I'm going to try and get a quick race rundown. You obviously already know the top 4. We got Bradders still in P5, Karate in 6th, Bar actually moving his way up into 7th place, Razor in 8th, Superboy in 9th, Tap in 10th, Simon in 11th, and TDC in 12th after that spin at turn 3. And there has been another lead change, so coming out of turn 1 it looks like, I have managed to make amends for that penalty already. However, both cars are now seemingly unstable, so now the GTR is also starting to struggle on applying the power, which is not something we have seen from myself so far this race. So starting to feel the pressure with these relentless attacks for my position. And Small Jack, does he lunge it up the inside? Yes, he does, down the inside. Doug Barrow leaves in the space. They're still side by side on the exit, but the NSX will have very good traction coming out of turn 4, but he's going to have the outside line for turn 6. Can Doug Barrow just give him the squeeze? I don't think he has given him just enough. Yes, he has. He's just about shut the door and moved himself fully ahead of that NSX. So Doug Barrow, the master of defence in this GTRC group, once again manages to hang on for another lap. He is not letting that NSX get away, because I think once Doug Barrow realises that NSX gets in front for too long, Small Jack is just going to be up down the road, probably trying to find another position, either in 2nd or 1st. But all of this battling between these two is actually bringing Bradders into the picture. You can see him in the background there. So I think this gap is shrinking between these Small Jack and Bradders. So we will see if he can close in towards the end. I think that is Jack as well, just flashing Doug Barrow, trying to offset him coming into braking, trying to make sure that he maybe locks a wheel accidentally or just misjudges the braking zone. He's trying everything at the moment. He's realising that we've got less than half of the race now. We are 23 minutes in, so we've only got 17 minutes left on the clock. So now we are counting down towards the end. We are running out of time in the race and getting all out of shape, just doing a bit of a power slide coming out of turn 4. Same with Bradders with another 1 second track limits penalty. So despite all of the battling, it looks like 3rd and 4th are going to get a bit of a break here, as Bradders will have to serve that penalty, and that will promote Karate up into P6, unless Karate's got a penalty. No, he doesn't. So we are actually going to ride on board with the, well, soon-to-be first of the newcomers to this series. And Karate, actually one of the pace setters in the practice sessions. He was very quick when we were doing the races just before the actual event, and people were worried about how quick he was going to be, and already just showing everyone how good he really is, with already his first race in the series and very minimal practice, and he's already running in P5 at the moment. As we can just see up the road there is a battle between Doug Barrow and Small Jack again, coming up into turn 3. The NSX very late on the brakes there. Can Gr.3 get the switchback? No, he can't. He just bumps into the bumper of the NSX and actually helps him accelerate faster coming down towards turn 4. Defensive line for the NSX as Gr.3 tries his move around the outside. I don't think it's going to really pay off. Both of these two, every single time that they race each other, getting more wise to the other driver's weaknesses and defensive tactics. So it is going to get increasingly more difficult to try and launch an attack. And Gr.3, I think he's going to have to get this move done very soon if he wants to keep anywhere near that NSX, because it is just the favoured car in this category. We're quickly going to cut back to the leaders. Petrolhead once again slightly bringing the gap down. It has sort of stabilised the battle for the lead for the past few laps, but Petrol does have the fastest lap of the race, and he's got a very hefty slipstream as well. The NSX, the Supra and the GTR, seemingly very unstable cars on the traction, but I think the Supra has a very slightly better tyre wear, but there's not really that much in it. So breaking into turn 3, the Supra getting a little bit out of shape. Petrol, I think, maybe trying to look for that switchback. And Karate already back under pressure from Bradders. So the two newcomers getting very friendly with each other in this race. It's just a back and forth battle between these two. Maybe one to watch for the rest of the season, as if this is an indication of where they're going to be in terms of relative pace to one another, then these two could be fighting over the same championship position for every single race. And like I mentioned a lap ago, Gr.3 is just losing touch at the moment. I did say he had to get that move done pretty quickly, and he is losing touch every single corner. You can see the battle scars on the back of that Supra, so you can just see how much defensive work Gr.3's had to put in, that there's just been a lot of parking it on the apex, trying not to let the car behind get switched back. But unfortunately, it's looking like it's all been in vain at the moment. But there's still plenty of opportunities for mistakes for both of the drivers. Plenty of track limit infringements that could still happen. So we'll wait and see how that plays off between these two. As I think Petrolhead had just made a mistake coming out of turn 1, and that has increased the gap between myself and the Supra quite considerably. I think it's about a second now. So not ideal for Petrol's race. That is not what he wanted to see at this point in the race. We've only got about 12.5 minutes on the clock. So we are nearing the final quarter of the race. And Karate doing a good job at the moment just to keep that GTR at bay for the time being. The GTR is probably the best car in a straight line, especially around here where you don't actually need to use 6th gear at any point from driving the GTR. So I think even though the NSX does have a slightly better top end, the GTR can get there quicker. So I think that is going to play into Brad's hands here, as he does seem to be struggling unusually. The NSX is struggling a little bit, coming through the twisty sections of the track. And Brad is in that dirty air, not really letting it get to him, and he's managed to close the gap. He's very close here for an overtake, potentially into turn 3 again. And speaking of another overtake, Gr.3 down the inside for the final corner. Is there a little bit of contact? I think there was. Small Jack getting all out of shape. Does he keep it out the wall? Yes, he does. That was almost disaster for the NSX driver. And, well, that now really does open the floodgates for these two behind. Brad is probably wanting to now stake his claim on that 5th place, now that you can see that P4 is very much up for grabs. However, do they start to work together? Because they could actually help each other out here. Slipstream up to the back of that NSX and potentially bring themselves into podium contention. So the top 6 getting very interesting at the moment. And Small Jack should have cleaned up his tyres at the moment. I think he will probably have got rid of all the dirt and dust after going off the track. And Brad is in the background, down the inside of the Honda, up into P5 with a very tight line, but he manages to keep the very good traction. So up into P5 goes the GTR, which was looking like a very unfavoured car for this race, but I think just the straight line speed is just keeping it in play at the moment. And I think as long as you can drive around the issue, the GTR can be a very quick car, but obviously it's down to the driver to just get used to how bouncy it is on the suspension. I think Small Jack may be reducing the gap a little bit. The Supra of Doug Bauer not really getting away that much. I think that gap is reducing between these two again. Doug Bauer just slightly missing the apex as well, which is going to compromise his run down to turn 3. So I think Small Jack definitely looks like the more comfortable driver at this point, as Brad is looking like he's under pressure from Gr.3. He's going to make a move potentially into turn 3. Can the NSX be damn dear on the brakes? There is a little bit of contact there, so maybe Brad has pushed wide a little bit, but I think everything is fine between these two, as Brad just gets a fantastic traction on the outside line. And that just helps him keep ahead of the NSX for the time being. But you can see that just that little bit of fighting has cost these two time to the two of them in front of them. So this is not playing out as intended for Brad, as I think he might be. If there's no further issues, these two are probably set for P5 and P6. It just depends on what order they finish in. And just checking in on some of the other battles, we've got Bar and Razor still battling it out. So this has been a race-long battle, pretty much with everyone else in this race. Everyone else has had a race-long battle. And Superboy actually finally getting ahead of Tap. I don't know how long ago that was, but he has managed to finally promote himself ahead of his fellow NSX driver. But the gap between these two is still quite tight, as we have got a spinner on track. It is TDC once again, actually with front end damage as well. He was quite close to overtaking Simon as well, which is a big shame, but he manages to rejoin the track. And despite him having another spin, as I mentioned previously, it is always worth finishing the race because we score drivers down to 15. So it is always worth finishing and just scoring those points, because keeping a consistent income of points will probably put you up at least a position in the championship compared to those who probably can't attend every race. So it is always important just to keep scoring, just to keep yourself in the game, because anything can happen in GTRC, and it often does happen. And I think I've just had to serve another track limits penalty, defending the inside line, but Petrol once again going for the switchback. Petrol really dialed in with the rotation of that Supra, but a massive sideways moment for the GTR. But I think it's actually given me a little bit of better traction, but I just took in for the slipstream coming down towards turn 1, not really wanting a chance overtake through this awkward corner. But just under 7 minutes left in the race, so I think that's going to be about 4 laps of racing still to come, including this one. But that Supra of Petred is really not comfortable coming down the straight, as the GTR once again up the inside into turn 3. A big clobber in the curve there. I think the Supra might have a chance now, as just getting the better traction, not riding the curb as hard. The GTR just about keeping itself in play. Petrol is unquestionably going to be late on the brakes, so is myself. But Petrol just getting the superior line on the inside, up into the lead once again. So that penalty for track limits costing me a lot at the moment. But the Supra going a little bit wide through the twistier section of the track, and that just invites another battle for the lead. And again, the Supra going a little bit wide of the apex, just costing myself a couple of tenths here and there. I'm going to quickly cut back to Razor and Bar, and I think Razor has just got that position off the Bar, but he goes very deep into the corner. Bar looking for that switchback, coming through the two left-handers, the only two left-handers on the track. Well, the only two proper left-handers on the track. And Barr just holding on to that position. So Razor looks like he had better traction at turn 4, but he has managed to just hang on there. As I have now overtaken Petrhead into the first corner, but getting all over the curb, ruining the exit of the first corner. Petrol back up the inside, again with another switchback. Still they are side by side, coming into the next braking zone. Can the GTR get the superior traction all over the sausage curb on the exit? I don't think that's quite going to work. Tucking in for some slipstream, but I think Petrol might just have this one, but he's got a track limits penalty. So that is going to really set him back at the moment. And it is very tense times at the moment, as everyone is aware that we are running out of time in this race. 4.5 minutes left in the race. And a change of position for P5 as well. So Karate back ahead of Bradders. However, he's gone very defensive for turn 6. Bradders trying again to go round the outside. Can he pull off the same move that he did about 20 minutes ago? I think maybe he can. I think the GTR is still there. Does he leave him enough space? Yes, he does. So very respectable racing between these two. And Bradders, that seems to be his little party trick, coming through the middle part of the lap just to take the wider line, take the extra speed on the greater radius. But Karate actually taking back the position. I think Bradders did just have to serve a track limits penalty, which is unfortunate because it was a great overtake. It's just cost him again with the track limits. The understeer of that GTR not helping him at all. And speaking of a GTR, once again being demoted back down to second place as Petrol takes the position, trying to keep me tight in the braking zone, trying to give me the least optimal line coming through turn 3. But GTR, unsurprisingly, just seems to have the legs in a straight line, and the Supra getting a little bit out of shape. Petrolhead once again keeping me tight for the braking zone, and I think he manages to swoop in, cut my nose off, and he's managed to take the position with only, I believe there's only 2 or 3 laps left in this race. So there is definitely tense times at the moment, as the GTR getting out of shape as well. Just a small power slide there once again. And Jack just closing in again on Doug Barry. He has been trying to recover that time that he lost after going wide at the final corner. And I think he is trying to maybe launch a final lap attack, because I think he's been slowly gaining, but obviously on the older tyres it's just so difficult to get that overtake done. As it's side by side again into turn 1. Do they keep it side by side? No, we don't. We managed to just form single file through that corner. Petrol tucking in for that slipstream up to turn 3. It's basically just the same story run over and over again, but it doesn't really get any less exciting. Another big dose of curb with Petrol getting that switchback again. So the Supra just a much better car on that rotation. Side by side again, down the second back straight into turn 4, almost wheel banging again, coming into the braking zone. That Supra should have the legs, but he's gone a little bit deep. That's going to give me the switchback coming through the traction zone, and the GTR once again moves itself back into the lead. But we are approaching the final lap. This is the penultimate lap of the race, if my maths is correct. The GTR having another slide there, and I think that is track limits as Petrol dives up the inside into turn 7. A little bit of bumper contact between the two drivers, but no damage for either. But I think, yes, that is track limits for myself. So I think that has just sealed my fate for P2, as Petrhead is looking like he is going to take a second victory of the season, but he's gone wide at the penultimate corner and gone wide again at the final corner. He just about keeps it within track limits, but it's given him a very poor exit as they start the final lap of the race. Not really enough of a run for the GTR to get up the inside. A lot of curb taken there though, as I took in for some slipstream. Going to ride on board for the final lap of the race. Can Petra just keep the traction on the outside line? He does seem to be very good at this corner, just to defend his position. And I think I can hear that Supra up the inside again. And yep, once again, that Supra and Petrol just seemingly having the legs on me through the traction zone there. And I think Petrol has done just enough to hang on for the time being. Small Jack giving Doug Barrett a bump into turn 4. And this battle is still disputed. This is a much closer battle than the one for the lead of the race. And Jack up the inside, but Doug Barrett just using the wider line to keep the extra momentum, same as what Brad has been doing for a lot of the race. And he's managed to hang on just long enough. Doug Barrett getting all out of shape. He manages to keep it within track limits though. Does the NSX have one final chance coming down to the penultimate corner? I don't think he has. It's not a big enough braking zone. As Petra rounds the final corner in an absolutely thrilling sprint race at the Red Bull Ring, takes the win with myself into P2. Doug Barrow, the second Supra, rounded out the podium with Jack just missing out, best of the rest in P4. Then the two newcomers of Karate and Bradders in P5 and P6 respectively. Bar will just about hang on to P7 ahead of Razor, who finishes in P8. Superboy coming around the final corner to finish in 9th. An unfortunate race for him after the earlier spin, but a good recovery just to score some solid points. And Tap will be the final finisher of the race in P10, with Simon and TDC in 11th and 12th. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next race.